I think there's some Democrats and probably some Republicans who quietly think this was an impeachable offense. This was the President of the United States being willing to alter foreign policy for personal political gain, which is the allegation. Donald Trump, first off, everybody has to remember, controls the Republican Party. He has the support of the Republican Party, and unlike any previous president, he's willing to use it. So there are only a couple, like Mitt Romney, who've been willing to publicly challenge him. This is different.
So chances are he's safe. He goes into the next presidential election.
See, the big question mark to me is what we will learn in these hearings that we don't know.
If you think back to what Barack Obama said in 2004, there are no red states, there are no blue states, there are only the United States.
That was a great speech. I have a feeling if you asked Barack Obama to have a glass of wine, he would tell you there are red states, there are blue states, yes.
But that's not the case now.
No, I'm not sure. It was not the case then. I mean, people forget.
Rhetoric.
Yeah.
The idea that the divisions are greater now than they were then, is that a fallacy?
No, I think the divisions are greater for two reasons. First off, I do think that that President Trump has stoked the divisions. I mean, I think I don't think anybody would disagree, and anybody would disagree, even the Republicans would acknowledge it, that he ran a divisive campaign, he's had a divisive presidency. That's one reason. I will also say, media is far more divisive than it was during the Watergate era. There were 3 television networks. Everybody believed Walter Cronkite, whoever the anchor was at the time. There were 2 or 3 national papers. There was no Fox News. That's a big shift.
But do you put New York Times as part of the problem too, though, because you're seen very much as a particular kind of paper?
I do not think of the New York Times as part of the problem. To the contrary. I know we're cast that way, but I mean, I think the New York Times is aggressively trying to find out the truth. We get beat up by the left a lot, by the way. There are people on the left who want us to be even powerfully anti-Trump, as opposed to just what I would consider aggressively covering Trump.
But do you pull your punches? And the reason I asked that was because I know you famously once said, you can call out a lie,
yeah,
but you don't have to keep calling out lie after lie after lie. Yeah. And you said the same for racism. You can call out racism, you don't have to keep calling.
Yeah.
But surely you do, because that is how you build a picture.
I think when we use the word lie to describe Donald Trump during the campaign, which was my call, nobody even remembers what he said that was a lie. All I remember is that the New York Times used the word lie. I grew up in the South. I have read much about racism in the South. I lived racism in the South. I grew up in the 60s. The best writing about race and racism is writing that just lays it out and lets people talk. It's really powerful, and that to me is the way to build a story.
But what kind of would run counter to that would be in the 69 days coming up to the last election, where you had, on Hillary Clinton, you had days and days and days of reporting on the emails on the front page rather than general policy. Do you regret that?
I don't. You have to remember it. I know this always rankles people. The person who at the time was the leading candidate for President of the United States was under criminal investigation by the FBI. That's a major story. You could debate whether the emails were an appropriate thing to investigate. That's an interesting discussion to have. It would have been a political act, a political decision to say, we're going to downplay this investigation. I actually don't regret it.
Where the New York Times made a huge punch through, a massive impact, was the investigation into Harvey Weinstein's behavior. There's a lot of discussion about funds for newspapers and so forth. I mean, it's hugely expensive, hugely long. Would you be in a position to do it all over again?
Oh, I would yes. To me, a story like Harvey Weinstein is exactly what we're supposed to do. To me, that's powerful journalism. It was a great story. I'd love to do 20 of those a year.
Did he ever threaten you?
No. He tried to call to talk, and I wouldn't take his call.
It wasn't without criticism, though, particularly from Rose McGowan, who felt very hard done to. She said, I was the first to blow it open. They won the Pulitzer. I'm the one hard up. I'm grossed out about how much they enjoyed being lauded.
Rose McGowan stepped forward when people did not take her seriously, which does not say great things about the society, but I don't think that lessens, to be honest, the credit we deserve for taking her story and finding many, many other women to go along with it.
You are the only African-American editor of a major newspaper in America. Why is that?
You want to hear something even more appalling? Of the half a dozen biggest American newspapers, only 2 of them have had African-American editors, and both were me, because I was also the editor of the Los Angeles Times. Look, you know, America is still a place where it is harder for people of color to rise to ranks of power. I don't think there's any question of that.
Do you ever face racism?
Yeah, of course I do. I will walk into a restaurant with somebody else, and somebody will assume the white person with me is actually the boss when I'm the boss. Doesn't this happen to women? Of course it does. It's not, nobody called, though I have been called names in email and on Twitter, but there's no question that if you're an African American person in the world, you're used to that. Sure you are.
But you may be used to it, and you may shrug it off, but what do you think deep down?
At this point, given who I am and where I am, it bothers me a lot less than the people I grew up with who don't have the power to sort of walk through and say, actually, I am the boss.
Dean Baquet, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.